All right, we're going to talk about writing in general a little bit now. So why do you write?
Yeah.
Probably the most difficult question.
It's weird, yeah. It's surprisingly hard. It's one of those things where I just don't feel good unless I do it. It's like if you don't work out, you just eat fatty foods, you just don't feel good about yourself. And so writing is sort of like, I always get masochist and sadist confused with the thing where you hurt yourself because it feels good.
Yeah.
That's the one that I feel like writing is for me.
Because then you know you're alive. Right?
Yeah, like I can feel the pain.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same, people talk about, Sir Edmund Hillary climbed Everest because it was there. You do it because it's there. For writing, for me, it's like, this is the hardest thing I know to do. There's an infinite number of choices, infinite number of words and combinations and subjects, and finding all the right trajectories to try to write something that's worth someone else's time is really a fun, horrible experiment.
And so, for a lot of people who maybe are uninitiated to the writing world, presuming you don't do it for fame or money, because there are 12,000 writers here this weekend, and
all
there's not a lot of fame or money.
No, $0 total. No.
So, So
even the accomplished writers are sharing 5 people to a bedroom. Everyone is cramping up.
I brought a few of your books in the class. So you have several books. You've got a reading this weekend, panel.
Not a rich man.
Right, yeah.
No.
So
when I find Bigfoot and put him on ice, I'll be a rich man.
You'll have to make our money elsewhere.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Question, when is something done? Because we looked at this, In Defense of Sasquatch, and I brought in a copy of the Ninth Letter because...
Oh, cool.
And so Ninth Letter, I think part of the intro paragraph, one intro paragraph's gone, and part of the conclusion's gone. Ninth Letter is a legit magazine, so, why not just call it done and just say, hey, this was published in Ninth Letter, but then you saw that you wanted to revise it before you put it in the book form?
Yeah.
I guess, what are your standards?
Yeah, and for that specific example, the medium sort of changed for me. It went from literary magazine to my own chat book of 3 different essays, so I felt kind of making these adjustments for the chat book. It was sort of a matter of the medium was now different, so this would work differently in tandem with the other essays.
Right.
But honestly, probably those changes were a result of you reading it and giving me some good edits and me wishing I had those edits before, which is the truth. It's dedicated to him. If you look at the front of the book, To Brennan Tote. But it's true with my short story collection too, which is also dedicated to you. But
what?
in part.
No.
But all the essays, all the stories in that collection have been previously published. So I put the collection together. I gave it to the peer reviewers, and some were like, "These aren't done yet." And I thought to myself, "But they're published. They got to be done." But I went through them again and again. I realized these aren't done, and they're so much better now. The second time around, even after. My first time around of actually being read by people. The second time around, they're better. Third time, they would still be better if there was ever a third time.
And do you learn something from them after returning to returning to a piece, learning about the writing? Because I always, we turn in papers, I make comments on them, and I don't imagine a lot of people
read them. Yeah.
Well, I comment as if we're actually going to do another revision of this paper. We really don't. But always sort of looking out for the next level, the highest.
And I think that's where this is where students fail. This is where my students fail too. We spend all this time writing these comments, but then there's no rewrite really necessary, for the class. And so you look at the grade, and then we're sort of done with it. And you will never improve looking at a grade and moving on. You got to want to rewrite it anyway, regardless, or at least taking the comments seriously and making yourself a battle plan for the next time around. Because I always make this how we get better sheet for my students, where I kind of make a list of 5 things we can do to get better. And sometimes you learn from it, sometimes not, but I think it's that extra step of reflection after the fact that matters the most. After the publication, after the grade.
Right.
You can't stop there.
Cool. And can you talk a little bit about revision? We've done some conferences recently, and we're trying to craft thesis statements.
Yeah.
And so we come up with a thesis statement early on, and we start writing the body of the paper, and the body starts to explore something else. Does that happen to you, or as an experienced writer, are you able to sort of stick to topic, or is that just part of the writing process?
I think that's part of it, and I think that's the most exciting part of it. I love having kind of complete
Robert Frost saying, no surprise for the writer, no surprise for the reader.
Yep, that's so great, and I think that's something I think you should all think about too. My students as well, they get so caught up in argument or structure that they completely forget about the serendipity of looking at a piece honestly and trying to think about it just honestly and intellectually. It's all about nervous, how do I write this A paper, and no one actually stops to think about, how do I make this something valuable?
Or do I believe what I'm saying?
Yeah, even on that level, you're right.
Because the Donald Hall collection of essays you sent me, his introduction to that is about the ethics of writing. Do you actually believe what you're putting on paper? Which is, and as readers, you get a feeling of when someone believes or when they don't. So whether it's an audience or an instructor, that sort of comes through.
And sometimes I don't even believe the stuff I've written before. I read essays I've written before, and I'm I don't feel that way at all anymore. And it's sort of weird that's going to haunt me forever.
Yeah.
And even when I get like, now when you publish online, you get these whole like comment message boards where people are like, recently, careful BJ, you're writing a fine line between blank and blank. I'm like, who are you, anonymous person,
right.
like criticizing the piece when you misread the piece? I mean, it's impossible to, it gets us off track a little bit, but trying to please these random people in the world and asking myself, well, did I really believe what I meant there, or is he trying to like subvert what I said? And I'm sticking to my guns on this one. I believe what I said in this latest essay, but
well, and it's like you're writing for yourself, really. And so I think you probably want your students to write for themselves as opposed to seeing it as like an assignment they have to fulfill for you.
There's a great quote I always put on my syllabus. It's Ralph Waldo Emerson. It's something like, a man is happy and relieved and gay when he has put honesty into his work, but when he has failed to do so, it gives him no satisfaction. That's a butchery of the quote, but it's like, if you aren't doing this to just be real and communicate with the world, don't bother. I mean, it's just a waste of all of our intellectual time. Don't do it for a grade. Do it because this is an opportunity to live a life and breathe and think out loud.
Yeah, and even if you're not interested in writing, it's a good way to sort of hone your work ethic.
Yeah, exactly.
Which, as you're all going off looking for jobs, it's a hugely important thing.
Yeah, I mean, I always tell my people are like, oh, you're a creative writing student, you'll never get a job. But honestly, it's the most versatile stuff you could think of, because not only are you learning like how to write, but you're learning analytical skills, how to reason, how to engage with people in a workshop setting a lot of times.
Right.
So that's a lot of skills you take to the business world, you can take to journalism, you can take to advertising, all over the place. So cool. There's skills in writing, I promise you.
Awesome.
Just not money.